Hello, everyone, and welcome to a nice little review of Babylon. I saw this movie about 3 or so days ago, and I really liked it, so I wanted to talk about it and try to convince you through this video as to why you should watch it. So, I have a pretty nice history with Damien Chazelle, the writer slash director of the movie. Damien Chazelle, kind of a critically acclaimed guy. La La Land is in contention for one of the most nominated films in history. Whiplash is in my top three films of all time. So this man is nothing to scoff at in terms of what he means to me and what he means um, in the film industry as a whole. His impact is not that long, actually. Not really a long and illustrious career so far, but he's definitely made his mark on me personally. So Babylon, his newest movie, is essentially his traversal or take on the grand epic. And he's trying to create a spontaneous and erratic depiction of an evolving film industry in the 20s, at which ideological powerhouses of hedonistic and erotic behavior were continuously and completely bastardized and laid to rest in light of morality. And our characters find themselves in the midst of this. So, first off, what is the actual entertainment value of this movie? I think the thing that I immediately walked out of the theater thinking was that it was the most visually stimulating visual experience I have seen in a long time. Just scene after scene of absolute crazy, absolute intense. I think that's a good word to describe it. It's a very intense visual experience as it fully fleshes out the lifestyle and activity of a Roaring Twenties party, the lifestyle, the people, even the environment is just completely disheveled but glamorous and illustrious. And to that extent, your eyeballs can pretty much glue to any part of the scene the camera focuses on, and it'll still be just an overload of people doing anything you can think of. Having sex, doing cocaine, pissing in someone's mouth. Literally, the sky is the limit in this movie. They do not spare any expense making this visual like sort of hyperactive stimulating experience. It's like ultra crazy reality. And that's just the visual end, and I think it's better if you experience that for yourself. So I'm not going to really like dive into it, but you can take my word on it for that. I want to talk about the structure of this movie because I think that's where a lot of people walking out of this movie will kind of question what exactly they just saw. The formula of this film is to essentially present characters in a series of slice of life vignettes, basically displaying their traversal of the world around them, the backdrop and main focus being the film industry. All of our characters have some form of passion towards their craft, which seems to be a common theme in Chazelle's films. In Whiplash, drumming is the passion. Being one of the greats is the passion. You know, Becoming greater than life itself is the passion. And same as La La Land. These people wanting to achieve greatness in Hollywood comes in different shapes and forms. For one, it's through music, and the other, it's through the actual movie industry. And I think Chazelle is quite fond of characters who are sort of eaten away by their dreams and will do anything to achieve them, which is a lot of pretty much all these characters in the movie. But it's not as hyper focused on trying to present you as that or present them as that. But what I do appreciate in this sense is that all of his films feel like a passion project, and that's what your audience should feel when they watch your movies in general. When they watch an impassioned character that you write and they come off thinking, wow, this is a very passionate piece that he's given me, that's exactly what you want your viewer to feel. And that's how I walk out feeling whenever I watch any of his movies, whether I think they're good or not. Pretty much all of them are good anyway, so that won't matter. Uh, anyway, in terms of characters, if what you desire in your movies is linear, progressive storytelling, as in they start at one point and then you're slowly building up their character and slowly digging into their character and how they affect the world around or whatever, that you're not going to get that because we're skipping between all these characters through like sometimes months of time, get it. We don't see these characters for months into their career, or maybe in a year later, you know. But we're always skipping between these characters to keep the transitions flowing, keeping the people fresh, but not fresh enough in our minds to be like, wow, I can recall blah 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 what happened to them like 30 minutes ago. So that's not what you're getting here. It doesn't. The movie itself doesn't want to doesn't strive to tell its tale this way. It really just wants to take everything as erratically as the state of the actual world and decides to spend, as I said, 30 minutes focused on one guy and then randomly transition to another completely different landscape and just picture it for you, just like that, just because it can. And I like this. It does, I think for some viewers, it might lead them to struggle to comprehend exactly where they are in life and what stage they are at, but it's pretty easy to grasp. It's not like the most difficult thing ever. Like one day they'll be acting on their first set and the next day they'll be, famous. And that's kind of how it is. It's very spontaneous like that, you know? It's like yep, snap, we're now they're famous. And now what is their character? She's sort of a sex symbol. That's what Margot Robbie's character is when she's coming up in this film industry, when silent films really show that part of her, because she's not like a natural born actor. She considers herself a star, you know? And later in the film that sort of kind of gets muddled, but that's besides the point. That's kind of what the point of the film wanted to tell you about her. Um, and this aspect where the jump will be years or months or whatever, it doesn't work to the film's disadvantage. But as I said, I think overwhelming is the right word to describe it for some viewers. Not every part, but I think the translation might come off a certain way for different people, which kind of makes me even more interested in how other people see the film besides me. But that's, another point. Because I think this film is more or less 50 movies in one. So let's move on to another point here. I think the word that really stuck with me after this film was profound. There was a real effort to produce as many ideas as possible in this film, and most of them struck me with that feeling that I was seeing greatness at work, Every character in the movie really gets that scene, all capital that scene. That really defines their moment or defines an idea within Hollywood. Now, for me, the most powerful scene in the movie was definitely the portrayal of blackface, where a character, a musician who plays the trumpet, Sidney Palmer, isn't black enough for television viewers because of the lights being shown on his face. All the other black musicians along with him in the ensemble are visually darker than him. So they say in order to like sort of keep it all in one color scheme, we have to darken you up. So they give him like I think coal or something like that, or like some makeup to darken his face up, and it's one of the most visually frustrating scenes, and the tension in the air and how he's playing his heart out, but the sweat on his brow is sort of erasing some of the blackness on his face. A really powerful scene, right? But it doesn't really matter in the end of the day because he's not really like a main character. He's just a side character, sort of. That's how he feels. But the point is that it feels so powerful that it doesn't matter. And that's what I like about this film. It's something that you don't see in a lot of films where even these random one-off characters will have these moments where you're just taken aback. You're just absolutely amazed. You're just shocked that this scene exists, first of all. So yeah, they're not trying their hardest to follow these characters linearly and see how their career evolves under a microscope. They're just showing you critical points in their career, And this idea of following a character's career under a microscope, I think Chazelle already achieves in Whiplash, which is just a full character study instead of just the multiple. And it's also just, very, very particular and personal. Whereas this one is a lot more third person. But there are more personal scenes in this movie. It's just that the majority of it is third person. The next thing I want to talk about is effortless contrasting perspective. through this passage of time, seeing film evolve, we also get to see how people within the industry evolve that are not supporting characters really. We get to see how their mood, their mannerisms, their emotions change during the transitions. And the standout moment for me in that department is when sound is added to film, because we move from silent films to films with sound. There's this director character in the movie, which is a real hard ass, intensive, but passionate person about her work. She wants the shot to be amazing and will not hesitate to do it like 10 different ways to get it right. But when sound comes into play, the continued annoyance of having the limitations of overproduction and professionalism really eat at her creative ability. And you see that in her mannerisms slowly being degraded and slowly being just simplified, which is heartbreaking to see such a shift just to get one shot correctly with the effort that it takes. And it's not even a great shot. They dumb it down a lot creatively just to get it to sound fine and the lights to be fine and no interruptions and the camera is fine. Like they're just this overproduction really hurts the ability to be creative with your direction. And at the end of it, they're all super happy. They're yelling, they're screaming like, "Oh my God, we did it!" When the actual reality is just we got a basic scene filmed and now we can move on to the next take. And that's hilarious and also really, depressing for the film industry in general. I also want to talk about contrasting perspective from the world itself, in the form of the world. In the in the Wild West, that is Hollywood in the 20s, the sex, the drugs, and the people themselves are all presented in a positive light. Their ecstasy is, you know, all for the time of their lives and the entertainment value of it. And it's not gruesome or disturbing. It's just amazing to look at. And you see this at the beginning of the film. It's simply just astounding what they're presenting you with. An elephant arriving at the party is just another day in the week of fun. And there are moments here that are terrible or give you this essence of terror, but it's not like negative just yet. It's just like the party is too much, people get messed up or even die, but it's not like everyone is not there to have a good time. They're all there to have a good time. It's just that sometimes stuff happens. Comparatively, because of the transition of Hollywood and LA into a moral haven of conservatism and basically morality, quote unquote, LA's new interpretation of counterculture comes in the form of a much more vile and terrifying one, where the counter reaction is through sexual slavery, brutal cage fights, and seeing a dude eat a rat and having blood drip over his body. It's just disgusting and utterly shaking to see, but they want to tell you this because even though, this contrast for the new LA is like shorter than the first one. They want to show you this because they want to show you how the evolution of film has even affected the relative nightlife and the relative culture of people. And people are just terrible now, compared to you're sort of terrible, but you're not that terrible. You're presented it positively and extravagant, whereas it's like you're good. You have to go into an underpass or a tunnel to get to the real counterculture where people are just being killed for entertainment. Um, and the last form of contrasting perspective that I wanted to talk about was in the form of film itself, because obviously, because of film and the industry surrounding it, it influences our characters in more ways than not. Film begins in the movie as something magical. Our characters have their own reasons to really love film and the idea of being on a set. This is a magic moment. This is like I'm sort of in the Matrix, but I realize that I'm in the Matrix. We finally get to see the sets. They look rudimentary, but their wildness and craze are as magical as they present them to be. The effects are all practical, and with that, the standards of professionalism are not. People are actually stabbed and killed on set. They have massive 500. They have this massive 500 man war scene that really hammers this home. But despite that, it's amazing that people are actually able to coordinate such a thing. Films in this era are also very erotic. Margot Robbie is able to shove her vagina in a guy's face, show her boobs, grab a guy's nuts just for a fun shot, and that's sort of presented as something awesome. It's also a point in film where everyone in the theater treats going to a film like an extremely special occasion. People dress up in suits and dresses. The crowds are dying of laughter and standing up to applaud for silent films, which by today's film or by today's standards are crazy. I think the most interaction I've had in a film was like probably during a Marvel film or maybe like, I don't know, an anime movie. I just feel like no one really like gets up and starts cheering at like an event. Like what happens if I don't know, Iron Man or Captain America picks up the Thor's hammer, right? People are happy with that, but the entire theater is not erupting like they are in the 20s or in the early 20s. During a silent film of all things, which is crazy that a silent film has this particular effect on a human, and they really want to show you this particular. Damien Chazelle is really obsessed with how film affects humans, and eventually, the progression of film creates hardship for a lot of people in creativity, as I mentioned with the director character, and it also takes the shape of films with sound. So the actors and directors and producers who become accustomed in their ways found themselves losing touch and becoming relics. They really want to show you that this is like um, them becoming a relic of the past. This is a typical plot line, nothing too crazy. We stories regarding people being relics of their past is a common concept. But the way they present film is far more produced and catered towards being this moral high ground to the point of stupidity. And we sort of see this. Being a viewer now and seeing all these terrible products really highlights how far we have come in the future. There's this one scene where you have like 50 guys singing in the rain in like a musical format, and the effects are like super weird and like everyone's in really disgusting makeup, and it's terrible to look at. It's like I don't think I could do something like that. And then Brad Pitt's character is like, really? I gotta do this? And they're like, yup. And then he just looks so out of place in this setting because it just looks so silly and stupid. And, and Brad Pitt is sort of like, you guys are actually doing this for real though, for real. Yeah, so that happens. But the stopping point to where they want to give you that final evolution is in the 50s, where everyone enjoys film. People wear normal clothes, and people of many denominations and ethnicities are watching, which is great. And that's what I think about perspectives for now. And now I want to talk about the ending, because I think some people might misunderstand the ending. But this is what I think Chazelle is trying to portray or say. Basically, he hits you with this cannon fire of color and sort of recap of how far we've come in film and in the film itself. We are able to pull off scenes with color, sound, extreme design work, and etc. And then we move down the totem pole, de-evolving film to its rudimentary points in history and going all the way back to simple RGB flashing on the screen, basically trying to give you this picture that we as humans have basically been able to react in many different ways and in many different emotions to colors on a screen put in a particular order on a time frame. And Chazelle finds this fact extremely incredible and pivotal to the human species. To him, it feels like one's art is so impactful, no matter if it's film, music, painting, etc., you're able to produce a profound effect on them that creates emotion, or love, or hate, or laughter, or sadness. He finds that pretty crazy. I do as well. I think this is a crazy fact as well, that someone could be so stirred up by something that is just colors on a screen. So in total, I think that Chazelle's the GOAT. He's definitely a pretty cool dude in this film, and I'm very sad that this film is not doing well in the box office. So this is why I wanted to make this video. I think it's worth your while to see this film. I have barely scratched the surface on what I wanted to talk about on this film, but it doesn't matter. because the fact of the matter is, I actually want to go back to the theater and watch this 3 hour movie again. You can't buy that. You can't buy that type of dedication from a moviegoer. If I, the viewer, want to go back, that's already step one. You won. You already did something great. But the fact is, I want to go back to see how great it is again, and not to like just understand it better. That's another dub. I also do want to understand it better because, seeing this movie the first time is like watching 50 movies in one, as I said, and that's tough. So I do want to see this movie again for that as well, but I do want to see it because I think it is a really provoking film. Um, let me think about how I want to end this. I think Chazelle and Hurwitz have nothing to prove to anyone, and now are able to make whatever projects they want, even if it bombs like this film did. But I don't think they care because they made this film because they wanted to, not because one film exec really wanted it to be made in a certain way. That's what I got from it. I think passion projects like these are really sparse, and I want to make sure that everyone knows it's great. In fact, I think that's a pretty high compliment from me in general. From what I've seen, this project was in the mind of Chazelle for 12 years. That's what he said in an Oscar interview, which seems about right. This movie is crazy. Like, the amount of writing this takes is unbelievable, and also just the thought, the ideas that you have to like make these scenes around takes too much time. Too much time. So it's just one of the greatest creative efforts I've seen in a while. And the amount of content you hear, textbooks spawn textbooks of homework and writing. And that's pretty much all I wanted to say. Thank you very much for watching if you did. And I'll see you in the next one.